Let's go back to Donald Trump, and it's not really about, well, it is about Trump. We're going to talk about how his common sense American energy revolution has exposed the madness, not only of our own resident green lunatic, crazy Ed Miliband, the net zero secretary, but also of his fellow kindred spirit across the pond in America, Al Gore. He's another zealot, a fanatic about this green claptrap. Now, Donald Trump just says, nah, net zero's over, not going to bother anymore. We're going to drill, baby, drill, more oil, more gas, more coal. I'm going to make energy so cheap for Americans, you won't believe it. It looks like fairly soon, because of fracking and drilling and more gas, more oil, more coal, American energy bills are likely to be 5 times less than ours because of Ed Miliband. Ed Miliband is another liar. He's talking rubbish. Now, a guy who's written a brilliant article in The Spectator about all this is the excellent Ross Clark, who joins me now. Thanks for joining me, Ross.
Good evening, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, the statistic that I loved in your article, which was entertaining all the way through, bearing in mind that both Ed Miliband, Crazy Ed, and Mad Al over in America both stated after Trump said net zero's over, saying the renewable project, net zero is unstoppable. Well, you reveal that these figures, this is from the International Energy Agency, that worldwide investment in renewables has indeed risen. I mean, it's a bit of a racket. You can make money out of it. But that's gone up from $471 billion in 2021 to $771 billion last year. Pretty impressive. Now let's look at global investment in fossil fuels over the same period. 2021, $963 billion. Last year, 1.16 trillion. So renewables aren't out of the picture, but the idea that they're unstoppable is nonsense, because it looks to me very much as if fossil fuels are winning the race.
Well, I mean, all that Donald Trump is doing is actually what every other country, which most countries with significant oil and gas reserves are doing, which is exploiting those reserves. It's Britain which is the outlier in sort of voluntarily choosing to leave its oil and gas reserves in the ground through Ed Miliband's windfall taxes and refusal to grant new licenses. Most countries around the world are exploiting their oil reserves. They are drilling, baby, drilling, if you like, to put it in Trumpian terms. And that applies to, you know, the good guys, as we might say in inverted commas, President Lula in Brazil, who has aspirations to be the world's 4th largest oil producer by the end of the decade. Now, I mean, he's okay for turning up at COP conferences and signing all the documents, saying the right things and saying, you know, we're going to phase out oil and gas. But then he goes home and he boosts his oil and gas industry. The same is true of Justin Trudeau. Turns up at COP conferences, joins in all the platitudes, and then goes home. Canada's oil and gas production is rising. So, you know, all these countries are exploiting their reserves, just as Donald Trump wants to do. And it's true that, you know, throughout the past 20 years, America has unashamedly pursued a policy of national energy security and cheap energy, of which fossil fuels are a very big part. And that's been the case whoever's been in the White House, Democrat or Republican. And Donald Trump is just merely you know, continuing a policy that's been in place since George W. Bush.
Yeah, so what you're saying, Ross, is that world leaders, even the virtue signalers like Justin Trudeau and the new guy in Brazil, you know, whilst they'll say the right things, they're pragmatists. They realise that the people of their country will appreciate reasonable energy prices, so they carry on drill baby drilling. They carry on with their fossil fuel, with gas and oil, even though they'll bang on about their windmills and their solar panels till the cows come home. So they're pragmatists. the kind of leaders that perhaps you want. We have Ed Miliband, who's not a pragmatist. He's an evangelical zealot who is going to make us all poorer, he's going to make us colder, and a lot of experts say that without a shadow of a doubt, if we carry on down his road, his absolute green lunacy road, we'll have blackouts within a couple of years, power cuts, massive power cuts, and at that point this government will find itself in serious trouble.
But that is very likely. I mean, you look at a day like today, wind energy is producing about less than 1% of our electricity. Solar power was producing about 2% during the early afternoon. Of course, it's fallen away to nothing after sunset. But Ed Miliband wants to build an electricity grid that's almost entirely powered by solar and wind. I mean, how do you do it on a day like today? And his answer seems to be, well, we'll keep all the gas plants we've got. We'll keep them, sort of mothballed so we can use them on a day like today. Well, that's going to be fantastically expensive because on the one hand, we're going to have all these gas plants which have to be, they charge high prices when they are in operation because they have to maintain them, keep them maintained for when they are needed. And at the same time, we have vast numbers of wind turbines and solar farms which are going to be producing power which can't be used a lot of the time because the grid won't be able to cope. They'll be producing too much power. And what we do at the moment? We compensate the owners of wind farms when the grid can't accept their energy. Consumers paid £1 billion last year to do that. And it's completely ridiculous. It's completely extremely expensive. And the idea that Ed Miliband's idea it's all going to save us £300 a year is complete fantasy.
Well, our energy costs are already going up. I mean, they're beginning to rocket. So, that's one pledge that hasn't come true. Let's enter the through the looking glass world of Ed Miliband. Now, think about this. This is a guy, while we're going, why is Britain doing this? Why are we so fundamentalist about greenery when we produce less than 1% of the world's carbon emissions, when anything we do here in Britain will make no difference to the ecology of the world whatsoever, because we are such a minor polluter. While we produce less than 1%, China produces 28%. So we go, well, Ed, why are you doing this? It doesn't make any difference. It's just costing us a load of money and not helping save the planet whatsoever. It's very important that we're a world leader, that we show the way so that other countries will follow. How's that working out with America? Are they following us? Because it doesn't look like they are, does it? So there is one of his policies, one of his intentions, completely shot down 2 days ago by Donald Trump. Where in America, net zero is over. Ed Miliband says net zero is unstoppable. I've got news for you, Ed. Donald Trump just stopped it.
Yeah, well, it's a bit like the Chagos Islands, which you were just talking about a moment ago. It seems the policy of this government is we've got to fleece our own people to make these sort of grand gestures on the international stage, to sort of sackcloth and ashes approach to government. And I mean, when Britain made this net zero commitment in 2050, and this is a sort of made the policy commitment in 2019 to reach net zero by 2050. The idea was that it was going to inspire all these other countries to follow suit. And some other countries have made sort of set targets to reach net zero by 2050 or other years, but they're not the sort of legally binding targets in most cases that Britain has put itself under. So, if the UK government fails to make progress towards its 2050 target, it will be sued. It can and will be sued by all these environmental organisations, and then it'll no doubt be handing out climate reparations and all the rest. When it comes to, a country like China, if it doesn't sort of meet its 2060 target, would Xi Jinping has made it clear that he will not pursue this target at the cost of economic growth. And, if China finds it difficult to get to net zero, it's just going to drop the target. Same in the US, same with most countries around the world. It's just Britain and a handful of other European countries which have decided that this is something that they really are going to sort of force upon their people at any cost.
It's nonsense. So you've got the big polluters are, of course, China, America close behind. You've got Russia, you've got India. Brazil is a big polluter. Even Australia is quite big. None of them are particularly doing anything about net zero whatsoever. If they're doing anything at all, it's mostly lip service. Oh yeah, we care about the planet. Carry on drilling, carry on mining. You know, that is the attitude of the big polluters. So they're not doing anything. So, can't Keir Starmer see the lunacy of this evangelical madman and the damage he's doing to this country? Ed Miliband, I think, is probably the most dangerous man in this country right now. What is it about his nonsense, his utter, arrant, palpable nonsense that Keir Starmer can't see?
Well, I think once those blackouts begin, and I think we will eventually have severe problem. I mean, it might not be a blackout, but it'll be people being ordered to sort of turn off their appliances at particular times of day because the grid can't cope. Once we get to that situation, I think the debate will change because Ed Miliband's position will become untenable. But can I just make one other point about Donald Trump? And we are becoming, as in Britain, we're becoming more and more reliant upon US gas, thanks to our refusal to exploit our own resources.
Fracking, yeah.
And we're now importing US shale gas fracked in the US to Britain to power our power stations and to heat our homes and so on. And thank God that Donald Trump is exploiting his oil and gas reserves, because if he wasn't, we wouldn't have any gas. We wouldn't have enough gas to power our power stations and keep our homes warm. So thanks, Donald, for what you're doing. And
absolutely,
Ed Miliband should be extremely grateful to him.
Yeah, one last point, about fracking. I mean, I know a bit about earthquakes. I used to live in Los Angeles. I was in a massive earthquake back in the 90s. And I know about the threat of earthquakes, and I know where they happen. You become obsessed when you live in California with earthquakes, with seismology. Anyway, so we had that big potential fracking unit, didn't we, up in Lancashire, all ready to go. What were they called, Quadrant or some company like that?
Yes.
All ready to go. This was the Tories, by the way, just ready to go. And then suddenly, no. Oh my God, there's a few grannies saying save the planet outside the plant. Rishi Sunak and the gang and the Tory gang said, oh, we need to close this down because it's going to cause earthquakes in Blackpool. No, it wasn't going to. It never would. What a load of nonsense. But not only did we close the plant down, we poured concrete into all the tunnels to make sure it could never be reopened. What is this insanity in this country? What is that all about?
Yes, well, when it's accused of causing earthquakes, what they actually mean were very, very minor earth tremors, which couldn't even be felt by humans on the surface of the earth. The idea that it's going to sort of cause a sort of earthquake which devastated San Francisco in 1906 or something is complete utter fantasy.
Do you know what, Ross?
These are minor tremors which we get hundreds of them every year anyway, because they're just in the background wherever you live on the earth. You can't escape these sort of minor tremors from time to time. And we killed off, and just like the GM foods that were going to grow us second heads and so on, we closed down a complete industry because out of sort of irrational and exaggerated fears.
Yeah, you know what we need? Donald Trump, with his amazing speech the other day, you know, the end of wokery, the end of net zero, the end of 107 genders. It was a bit like Emperor's New Clothes. It's like somebody came in and said, do you know what? This is all nonsense. And everyone went, you're exactly right. We need a Trump in this country to do the same. And to go back to that story about potential earthquakes in Blackpool, there were slight tremors from the early fracking manoeuvres in the local area. And somebody, a seismologist, said the tremors were the same as you would experience if you dropped a watermelon onto the street. That was the level of the tremors that they said would destroy Blackpool. This is the insanity that grips this country. Hopefully, Donald Trump can bring, well, he's bringing sanity back to America. Hopefully he can bring it back to Britain as well. Ross, great to talk to you. Thank you very much for your time. The excellent Spectator columnist there, Ross Clark, on the lunacy of Ed Miliband. He's going to cost us a fortune.